What an important night for us to be together. I think it's important that everyone, actually I'll make that change from important to life-dependent, that people grasp what's going on in this country. We are undergoing a full communist attempted takeover. They have controlled the media. They have controlled what most people call the mainstream media. Some call it the lamestream media. I like to refer to it as the giant cesspool of false journalism, okay? But in the idea is that we're now faced, Doug, you've had your time on the radio, I've had my time on the radio. We're faced with the greatest attack upon the Bill of Rights, and also people can't relate to what's going on. I heard Joe just speaking about it, but deciding what we can think and not think. I want to give you a couple quotes that's really important for people to understand. Former, director, CIA director, in 1981, William Casey, who, by the way, ended up being assassinated, will know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American people believe is false. So they who have taken control of the narrative, the Democrats, the demon rats, the Republic rats, the rhinos, Republicans in name only, I think that the failure right now is to not identify the supernatural evil and control mechanism that is running both sides of the fence, so to speak. We've got Saul Alinsky's rules for radicals being implemented before our eyes, and what's interesting, just before going on with you, Doug, I was thinking, notice how he talks about the pure doctrine of Lucifer in the same way, that was Albert Pike's statement, but we've got Luciferians now, both in the international Masonic world, and we've got it in the occult world, and you've got basically Satanism, Luciferianism, and everything out in the front for all to see. I want to make this claim. As those who will take away your free speech, the next takeaway is your life. The last thing you have between them and your demise is the intervention of the living God and the Second Amendment. So notice the ramping up, the false flags, everything has taken place, but isn't it interesting that the Republicans in name only, and I call them rhinos with no spinos, okay? And we've got the ideal situation here for a controlled takeover of this country and take down. Now, another thing that's really important for people to understand that William Colby, the other former CIA director that I think followed Casey, the Central Intelligence Agency owns everyone of any significance in the major media. A friend of mine was at a really high mucky-muck meeting when, good night, what was the name of the guy that was the head of the Federal Reserve that always smoked cigars, really a tall guy?
Not Ben Bernanke.
No. This is years ago, 20 years ago.
And I don't know.
Anyway, the formal head of the Fed, when he was being asked by this person, basically made the statement, he said to him, Mr. President of the Fed or whatever, what's this deal going on between Republicans and Democrats? And to which the head of the Federal Reserve made the statement, hell, son, we own them all. So when you're dealing with compromise, when you're dealing with politicians and you're dealing with all the dirty laundry coming out, Doug and Joe, what we're seeing is that statement. Somebody of influential power and control has basically compromised everybody, and that's how they get them to do their dirty deeds. And when I say dirty deeds, if you see the rampant child sacrifice, pedophilia, even now the narratives in the mainstream press, it's okay to be a pedophile. It's just normal love. It is not. It's perverse. And Jesus said it'd be better for those people to have never been born than to cause these little ones to stumble. And I guess you'd say there's coming a millstone day of reckoning for all of them. And right now, the I would say this, we're majoring in the minors and minoring in the majors until the people of God wake up, understand the nature of the spiritual battle, and, begin to operate in the real power of God. You cannot stop this by argument. Now, we're doing our best to withhold corruption, to do the best job we can do to make sure that people become informed. But recently, Doug, and you and I spoke about this off air, and I won't name any names, you have guys who have pretty prominent talk show ministries taking on Alex Jones. You have people that are trying to make themselves the number one bastion of truth while they redirect and reassign their ministry. 1 minute they're this, next minute they're that, and it's counterproductive, ladies and gentlemen. Even if you don't like Doug Hagman, you don't like me, Steve Quayle, you don't like Alex Jones, certainly you can be intellectually enough honest to say, but free speech, if it goes, the whole country goes. The freedom of speech is basically being now, it's going to be assassinated, and your ability to hear what we have been shouting about, yelling about, my case 25 years, Doug's case, 18 years, whatever, Doug, 17 years. The thing that is problematic to me is we've got more fighting within our ranks than we have against the ranks of evil. And each man seeks his own and not the things of God. This is not about, quote, your radio talk show, my talk show, the books I write, the articles you write, whatever we do as unto the Lord. But the point being is that now we're in a position that we're dealing with a true confrontation with a very takeover and overthrow of our nation. And ladies and gentlemen, maybe, Doug, you could read it on the air. I've been doing talk radio. I did a recorded program for Dave Hodges, and I did one I was on with David Knight this morning with InfoWars. So if you don't mind, I just posted my alert from my federal LEO, boots on the ground in Portland guy, Marine, hunter, sniper, killer, this guy loves Jesus. God bless you, my brother, that wrote this, but it's probably one of the most prescient things because we forget that the Obama nation of desolation. Obama took the nation to the point of desolation of anything related to our Constitution and Bill of Rights. Remember his statement? America is the greatest nation in the world, and we intend to change all that. Yep. So, with that statement, if you could find it, Doug, it's on my alerts, and I'll keep talking. If you wouldn't mind reading it, I think it's one of the most important posts on my alert. It's fresh. It was just put up maybe 10 minutes ago. Can you get that and read it? Or even have Joe read it?
Yeah,
it's that important.
You're talking about the targeting of Alex Jones and InfoWars, just the beginning from federal. Yeah,
that whole thing.
All right. And folks, here it is. Again, you can find this on Steve Quayle, stevequayle.com. This in the alerts section, titled "The Targeting of Alex Jones and InfoWars," is just the beginning. This is from a federal law enforcement officer and Marine. High-valued targets for the left in list fashion: Donald Trump and his family, all of Donald Trump's supporters, high-ranking military and government supporters, evangelical figures who use their media platforms to speak out against the left, social media platforms who support Donald Trump and Christian conservatives, the police, ethnic communities, the U.S. financial systems, national commerce industries like trucking, just to name a few. Now, he goes on, when I start to think about it, and I think about civil war and how it will be started again, it comes to mind that the object of the left is the same as the goals of all communist countries, and it always turns out the same way. There has to be a false flag attack, followed by fake news, followed by a revolutionary movement, followed by the outing of high political figures, which will also be followed by various attempts of a governmental coup. They will either succeed or fail. And stop me, Steve, anytime you want. The dynamics for all of these things are already in motion and have been in place since Obama came to the White House and attempted to destroy the fundamentals of our country. What we now see going on in the streets of Berkeley, California, and Portland, Oregon are the beta test. And it proves the point that a dumbed down population with nothing better to do and no strenuous job to keep them busy has given birth to a young generation of Americans who now have the unique opportunity to openly rebel and be embraced by society. What you see unfolding has been happening since the hippie movement in the 60s. We've all spoken of this before for many years, but now the left has finally come out to show their true face: communism. Surely, in this twisted society in which we live, now we see you're either falling on the left or you're falling on the right. There is no in between anymore. Families are literally torn apart. I just had to increase the font size. Sorry about that. Due to their differing political perspectives. Myself and many other operators have talked frequently about how we think a civil war/coup may happen. Even though this seems far-fetched, this has proven to happen multiple times in history, and it goes something like this. A national figure rises up against the establishment, like Trump. As a result, the entire political balance gets thrown hard to the right, and secret societies and the deep state and the wealthy, who are in control of this country, now that they're slowly, too quickly losing control, and they're now also at risk of possible incarceration under maybe a RICO Act. If the rumors of signed indictments are true, then you've got 14,000 deep state individuals with various degrees of political power and prowess that are at risk of going to prison for life. Do you really think those people are going to allow themselves to be taken alive? Interesting.
Stop there, Doug, for a minute, okay?
Right.
And mark your spot. Thank you for reading that. If I did, I'll lose my voice. Do you really think, with all the QAnon and all of this information and all the hoopla, the point is that what this, what this law enforcement agent is sharing with you is that what he's writing to us is already in the game plans and how it's going to play out. I want everyone to consider that when Obama came into his destructive phase in the presidency, I believe it was 300 to 400 admirals and generals that were either retired or forced out.
Yeah, it was a significant number through the terms.
And and I believe those numbers are right, between 300 and 400. If somebody wants to fact check that, or Joe, look it up if you don't mind. But what happened is he took out everybody that had a constitutional allegiance. He took out people that were battle-tested, battle-hardened generals. He took out admirals that had basically said to him, we're not going to go along with that. And for the record, there were multiple assassinations of high-ranking military officials during that time period. So the point that I think people have got to understand is, Doug, this isn't a little fight, excuse me. This is the fight for our future, our children, and our grandchildren. And there are no good guy communists, okay? I don't think people can grasp what we're facing. We're not only facing the desire of the left, the communists, the socialists, the Satanists, the pedophiles, the perverts, and everybody else. We're facing their desire to kill, destroy, and annihilate. I don't know how to be any more blunt than that, ladies and gentlemen. You think I'm kidding? Go read their own statements. Remember the whole Weather Underground, the statements that were made, 20, 30 years ago, Doug, and they were talking about killing 30 million people then. And then, everyone, bring to remembrance that the former entity in the White House made the statement that he needed to have a private army that would equal the military. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you remember the stories of all the billions of rounds of ammo and all the weapons that were bought, and obviously the linkage to even the gun running in Mexico and the false flags associated with that, the thing that is critical, Doug, is that I don't know any more way to have a reality check than I pray literally that God, you'll dump cold buckets of ice water on everybody to shock us into an awareness that I believe, due to mind control and some of the things that, from MK Ultra and all the different programs are in there, we are being numbed, dumbed, and for total reason to destroy us. There is no way to explain the apathy, the indifference, and the passivity in this nation, and the pussification. Those are my words. Don't get mad at Doug. When we should have titanium testicles, we got basically, Jell-O. And I'm sorry to be so. I have to say this. I don't know how to communicate any more bluntly than the way I'm trying to do it tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, this is war, and I'm praying that ideas and boldness and the hand of Almighty God will change the course of our history, because we sit back as I'll make it very nice, as ignorant donkeys. Dumb, burros, and thinks that somehow this is going to resolve itself without you standing up, without you speaking up, without you getting furious to the point of saying, I'm not going to let them have my children, I'm not going to let them have my grandchildren, and no matter what it costs, I'm going to do something. I got an email the other day that kind of typical guys saying, well, why don't you guys in the alt-right news do something? And I sent him back an email, and it was relatively nice. It just said, whenever I hear, why don't you guys in the alt media do something, I ask him point blank, what are you doing? What are you doing, sir? What are you doing? And today, when I was on InfoWars with David Knight, I thought it was a really good interview, talking about not only the Branson Conference coming up, and by the way, ladies and gentlemen, we have less than, I think, 50 tickets today, so I would guess by the weekend those will be gone, but we want to encourage everybody to live stream. You need to hear this, because, again, I'm on record, and I said it when we started talking about the conference, Doug, back in January, February, the first mention of it, that everything changes after mid-September. It's going to change in the realm of AI, artificial intelligence. And for the record, ladies and gentlemen, Google and all of the Skynet officials, Twitter, everybody who's in that world of high-tech techno-fascists are basically using AI programs on you right now. They're using them on me. They're using it on Doug. They're using it on Alex Jones. And Alex has got the temperament to be the tip of the spear. And one thing I got to say this, if the Trump administration would do one thing, they could turn this thing around. They've got to regain the narrative. This isn't about Donald Trump meeting with some Russians to influence the election. It's about the treason that took place. Treason, and selling uranium and fissionable materials and highest technology, our highest technology, not only the Russians, but the Chinese. So the point being is that they allowed, and forgive me, but the advisors that Trump kept in the meeting, and by the way, I am saying this, I thank God that Donald Trump, because I see his enemies, and I said this on George Norrie, I said, I know who hates Trump, and those people are evil, and therefore I see that Trump is the man that God wants. Now people say, well, what about his moral failures? Good night. God chooses men based on what his purpose with them is. King David, you might have a problem with him. He was an adulterer. Moses was a murderer, and yet God in his sovereign, his ways being higher than our ways, he chose them. I can't tell you the flack I've gotten from wannabe Christians or claimants, and they call me every name they can call me. I'm sure they do you too. But ladies and gentlemen, that God gave us if you will, an intermission to see how his people are going to respond, react, and act, okay? That's what this thing is all about. And I believe that, like him, hate him, agree with him or not, President Trump is being used as, if you will, an investigator, Doug, kind of like what you do when in your investigative skills, to go out and to rout out all the sin, all the wickedness, all the horrific things going on in this country, because God is going to judge America. I know that there are prophecies out there that, we're going to have a great revival and turn around. Well, I don't see how you get that without repentance. I don't. And I know the history of the world. But I also know that God has heard the prayers of his people. But are the people seeing the hand of the living God in staying our demise and doom? Look, what is in the rest of that alert is really critical. Remember this, that Goebbels, or some people pronounce it Goebbels, but I pronounce it Goebbels, O-E with the umlauts, and I'm probably killing the Germans, so I apologize, but they got control of the media, and that's what made them successful. That's what enabled them to basically dumb down people with what I call day talk. While they were dumbing and numbing the people down, they go out and whack anybody that the Fuhrer thought was any type of threat. We're seeing that right now. In essence, we are being tried, Doug, only to be sentenced, not just you and I, everybody who's a patriot, who loves their country, who loves the Constitution. You are being assimilated into an assassination algorithm. Can I make it any clearer than that, do you think, Doug?
No. And you said a lot in that, in that whole, you said a lot there, and let's go back. Just let's revisit something here. I think what people really need to understand when we look at the current political landscape in the United States is you've got a president that's under siege, and it's just to be very basic, and I know that this is repetitive, and I know that many people are tired of hearing this, but you know, we have new listeners joining us all the time, and people are at different levels of knowledge. So you've got Donald Trump announcing his candidacy in 2015, and it was at that time when you had Obama in the White House, and the Muslim Marxist Manchurian candidate, in my view, without any bona fides, without allegiance to the United States, being advised during his campaign by John Brennan. I'm going to give you a long rest here, Steve, so hang on a minute. Being advised during his campaign by John Brennan, who ultimately became his national security advisor, another Muslim convert, according to John Guandolo, while Brennan was overseas, the station chief in Saudi Arabia. So you've got not just a national, but an international spy ring working against Donald Trump, where the director of the CIA, appointed by Obama, Brennan, directed outside international intelligence agencies, not just to spy on Obama, but actively send in spies to entrap, or spy on Donald Trump, to entrap Donald Trump. So you've got a attempted sting operation. But the surveillance of Donald Trump began when he announced his candidacy on that escalator, the famous scene. That's when it began, when it became clear that he was going to take the Republican nomination. That's when the dossier business began, roughly. It didn't begin on July 31st of 2016. It began much earlier. And then, of course, after he was inaugurated, well, let me just say this. Before he was inaugurated, you had all of the business with the electors. Remember that we have to get them to vote their conscience and vote for Hillary Clinton. Of course, that didn't work. So now today we find ourselves in a continuation of the coup against Donald Trump by the very same people who orchestrated the coup. But you mentioned something very, very important, I think, and that's about Mueller. Mueller could only be the guy for this job, and he's got really three tasks. The first one is to protect the deep state and Hillary Clinton, especially, and Obama, because all of this leads back to Obama. The second task is to protect himself and those around him when he was engaged in the Uranium One deal, as written by Peter Schweizer. And the third is to find or manufacture any evidence to impeach Donald Trump. And failing that, it'll be by any means necessary, because they don't want a repeat of 2016 in the midterms, and they don't want a repeat of 2016 in 2020. I just want to summarize that and give you kind of a rest. That's
well, thank you.
I don't know if that makes sense, but that's really. Well,
sure. And again, here's the thing. You're not just fighting a political fight. We're now in the fight for our life and for our existence. God said his people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, not because he doesn't tell them what's going to happen, but because they refuse to listen and apply it. Let me give a word that's really important for everybody to understand. When we're talking about algorithms, assassination algorithms, and the AI, artificial intelligence, I call it antichrist intelligence. Cryptocracy, I'm reading this, is a compound of crypto, meaning secret, and crazy, meaning crazy cryptocracy, meaning rule, government, governing body. The cryptocracy, then, is a secret government whose identity and whereabouts have slowly and reluctantly been hinted at by the Congress through the investigation into Watergate, the CIA, and the rest of the intelligence community. The cryptocracy invades, listen to this, the privacy of citizens and corporations. It meddles often violently in the internal politics of foreign countries and has hired, trained, and equipped mind-controlled assassins for the murder of heads of state, including JFK, RFK, Martin Luther King Jr., etc. The story within the story I discovered is an astonishing one of a psychological war waged by the U.S. cryptocracy against the American people. And that was stated by Walter Bauer, Operation Mind Control, 1978. So here's what we have right now. We have men already giving their power. Power can be authority, it can be finances. Obviously, money is powerful. But giving their money and power under the image of the beast, this AI God. Hey, Joe, did you see that story that they're openly talking about an AI God right now?
No, I haven't.
They want a God. Did you see it?
No, not specifically. If this is a new one, no.
Well, there was a story on one of the major news sites about the people that are in this world believe that they can create a God who can fulfill all of the requirements that they've detailed, in a lineal fashion, and basically quit worshiping the God of heaven and how do I say this, totally avoid any mention of Christianity, and yet the AI, Antichrist intelligence, is what's luring them all to their eternal fate. They have all the money, all the power in the world, but Jesus said to them, what does it profit a man, basically to gain the world and lose his soul? Because they don't get it. But we are right now experiencing the Nazi takeover of America, the rise of the social media Gestapo, and I still maintain, Doug, and I don't change my statement whatsoever, that the empire beneath the ice, the Nazis that fled Nazi Germany, went to Antarctica, New Schwabenland, and all of the funds, the technology, and everything they had advanced that they'd gotten through, quote, the spirit world and gotten through esoteric means, that they are literally still behind the scenes running the world. And what should astound everybody is a couple days ago when the, if you will, some sort of projectile, the Air Force denied it. It went over Greenland, over our top secret military base there, which is called the Thule, Thule base. Well, Hitler believed in Ultima Thule, or the great frozen, if you will, civilization that had superior powers and prowess in all dimensions. But what was interesting that they clocked this thing at Mach 74, which quick and dirty is like 51,000 miles per hour. And one of the spokesmen who said, well, at least we knew it wasn't the Russians because we're still here. Well, what I don't think people understand is this. The tie between Greenland and Antarctica is really a tie that I don't believe most people have made. And I think that when events like this take place, and this is relevant to what we're talking about, the secret control of the world doesn't lie in the puppets of power. It lies with the Prince of Darkness and his fallen angels who pull the strings of the puppets of the world. Because again, look at this. We see it, and I think it's important. Did you guys see the article? And I don't have time to pull it up and put it up on my screen, but did you guys see the article where Google says that Angela Merkel should be the president of the world?
Yeah, I did see that.
Yeah, that's a little, that's not too crazy.
Yeah. Well,
now, I'll tell you, there's a reason why. Angela Merkel, obviously, look at who's pretty much the strongest person in the European nation or the European Union, and notice her ties. They've sanitized her ties, but she was, behind enemy lines, and she was in the Stasi, okay? And the Stasi, somebody I know met with a very powerful billionaire in Italy. In Italy, the guy pulled up a picture of Angela Merkel. He said, this picture is worth millions of dollars. And he was saying, he had a picture that would expose her for who she really is. Well, if you look at what's being done now, if you will, all of the different secret societies are pulling together to turn loose the Muslims against the Christians against the Muslims, the Jews against everybody, and everybody against the Jews, and everything in between, because they need, in essence, remember, everybody take out a dollar bill, which is now the same thing as about a 2-cent piece, but take out a dollar bill and look at the all-seeing eye on the pyramid, the new Novus Ordo Seclorum, the new order comes, and then remember that their goal is to do away with everything of the past. That's what they've done, Doug, with virtual reality and a virtual world, and everything is going virtual. They're absolutely dissecting humanity from its true roots, their true roots, our true roots, and putting us into a world that they manipulate, they control, and they change your identity, and they rob your free will. And people are yielding willingly their free will.
We Steve, and again, just to, because I know you've been on the radio and your voice, and when you look at this in the larger sense, you've got even what's visible, and what's happened in the past a couple of years, the tearing down of statues, the revision of history, the expunging of our culture and our heritage, in the name of because it's offensive and it's racist or whatever. So all of this, in addition to what you say at the higher level, fits together. So what people can relate to, by seeing the statues of the Confederate soldiers and the flags and all of this, the objectionable material, this is to change our history. And it's amazing to me how many of our young children today don't know history. And it's frightening, because if we don't know history, obviously, it's and the by the way, Steve, too, the current, I don't know how to say this, but the contemporaneous, I suppose, changing of history through edits and Wikipedia, for example. And how quickly.
You mean Wikipedia?
Wikipedia. There you go. I mean, see, it's interesting because people rely on Wikipedia as their online encyclopedia, but don't realize that it can be edited and the facts can be changed. And
even Wikipedia says it's not a reliable source of information.
Yeah. So, but there it is. So it's all tying together, and it's all coming together right now. You're right.
Well, again, one of the things that the Illuminists understand, the most powerful thing in the universe is that which God created, free will. There are people that will argue about free will, but free will is absolutely a foundational principle of both the Old Testament and the New Testament. If ye be willing and obedient, ye shall be, you'll eat the fat of the land, okay, in the Old Testament, And Jesus said, if you love me, obey me. But obedience to God is something that they've got to take away God, the God. And look, I know a lot of ancient history, okay? That's my passion. That's my hunger. That's the trying to keep relevant to a nation that forgot God. Just as Pharaoh, Joseph, when he was Pharaoh in Egypt until he passed away, then there grew up a generation that knew not Joseph. And that generation treated the Hebrews very, very badly, and obviously until God let them out. But even when God's people cry out to him, and God intervenes, there still needs to be a response. So I got to tell you something. We are literally in, how do I say, we're now in a place where everything that can be shaken is being shaken, and I call it the lullaby of madness, okay? When I remember my grandmother used to rock me when I was a little kid, and I have good memories, and sing a song to me on her porch in Iron River, Michigan, okay? By the way, Greg Evenson lived in Stambo, Michigan, for part of his time in there, and so the point point is that a lullaby is something that's to be soothing. Now you have virtual lullabies. You have mind control. You have electronic mind control bombardment. And I'll tell you this, I personally will not be in a 5G network. If that's the only way I can be on the internet, mark my words, I'm gone. Because 5G is going to be the ultimate electronic net of total control over your DNA, over your thought processes, over your ability, your biorhythm, your circadian heart rhythm, and they are going to take over. And isn't it interesting? I call that the pentagram. When they are going to give you a 5G, okay, and let's just call it what it is, a pentagonal, electronic pentagonal prism, then I don't want to be in that. And Doug, we're already seeing all the health ramifications of not only Wi-Fi, but every form of smart meter, every deleterious effect. And I guess at the end of the day, how do you make the case? How do we make the case that, ladies and gentlemen, this is about your life, what you have left here, depending on your age, but more importantly, it's about your children. Are you really willing to basically sacrifice them on the altar of indifference, or, they'll have to work it out for themselves? They don't have the opportunity to work it out for themselves as you do, because that opportunity has been taken away from them.
That's right. Yeah, and I agree with you on 5G. I just don't know how it would become possible, by the way, to circumvent or not be a part of that, because is that not the generation of wireless that will replace what's currently going? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm asking.
Well, yeah, I guess what I'm saying is that if you have to have a router 5G, I'm not going with the router 5G, okay?
Right, okay.
I mean, I know what I'm saying. I have to stand my ground. So maybe that's what the Lord meant when he said, when I was asking him, Lord, do I get off the air? When do I get off the air? And he said, you won't have to worry about that. Decision will be made for you. And Doug, I think that was very astute on your part to bring that up. Well,
and that could apply in any number of ways. That decision, of course, could be made for you by way of the 5G that you're talking about, or, as we're seeing today, by way of the fact that we will not be permitted as conservatives, as Christians, to be on the air and to share our ideology. That's right.
Well, yeah, and the night comes when no man can work. Excuse me, was Jesus giving us a red letter warning? That means his own words, that we will not be able to work. So we've got to work, and that's what we're doing. Yet, I got to tell you something. I don't want to be a participant in a talk show host tearing down Alex Jones, but I will say to the guy, because I know he will hear from this broadcast, that's such an act of cowardice, and by saying that those of us will be putting ourselves in harm's way, good night, sir. Get real. When you tell the truth, you are in harm's way, because the light shines out the darkness, and the darkness will do everything to smother the truth. And it's interesting because, Doug, I'm seeing guys basically losing it who are making statements like that. Alex is the tip of the spear, okay? And those of us who have been on talk radio alongside him, and look, I want to make something clear. I don't talk to Alex on a daily basis. I don't talk to Alex on a monthly basis. I'm busy. He's busy. Good night. The guy's got more energy than I can even try and attempt to define. But when I go on his show, or when we take breaks, that's the only time I talk to him. So people call me. I'm just saying this for this reason. Say, well, call Alex and tell him this, tell him that. It doesn't work that way, ladies and gentlemen.
No.
And I thank God that listen, the videos that Alex produced in the early years on radio have been absolutely instrumental in probably waking up, my guess is, 30 million people.
I would say that's probably a conservative figure, but yeah, I think you're right.
Yep. Yeah. Or let's just say this. Let's say it's a quarter of America's population, 75 million people. What do you think that he did it? And by the way, Alex is on record saying they're going to do this to me, and then when that doesn't work, they're going to kill me. And I pray against that. I pray against that, because to me, look, I'm sorry, but I'm surrounded, okay, and to a large extent by very few people. My circle of trust has diminished greatly, okay? But I am also around a lot of people that are on, quote, prophetic, in the prophetic world, and they're, I got to be careful here. They have their own broadcasts and everything, but again, a lot of them that, are looking to get out of here anytime soon in the rapture, and I would say this, I'm on record as saying the tribulation has started, okay? I'm not bowing out. I'm not blocking out. I'm not taking a hit. When cannibalism, I'm not trying to cover my butt and say, well, I didn't really say that. Is it the Great Tribulation? I don't know, but I know tribulation has started, because even Egypt, the stories today is Christianity is being destroyed, obliterated in the Middle East. It's being destroyed, obliterated in Indonesia. It's being destroyed worldwide. And even Putin came out today, and I agree with him, and that doesn't make me a secret Russian spy. He said the Pope isn't the defender of Christianity. He said, get out of politics and do what you're supposed to do. So the thing is that, and that is stand up for Jesus. Well, when the vicar of Christ, or, supposedly, the progenitor of Peter's throne, not the progenitor, but the recipient of Peter's throne, is throwing Jesus to the wind and is making all kinds of comments against Christianity, mocking Jesus, saying a personal relationship with Jesus isn't necessary and it's dangerous. Everything this guy has said, I would say this, man, what was he schooled in? The 14 rules of Lucifer? Because again, the thing is that people have got to understand. Now, I have friends who are Catholics, and I have Protestant friends that have basically, distanced themselves from me. So this isn't a Catholic Protestant thing. As a matter of fact, a couple of my friends who are Catholics, are they love Jesus, but they also know that this Pope is the anti-Pope, and that he's a usurper. But here's the point at the end of the day, and why I'm bringing this up. Because one of the things that people have to understand is mind control has always been present, even in the ancient cultures, okay? When I talk about the Egyptian Brotherhood, I'm talking about those who rule pretty much the British Isles. I'm not talking the contemporary Egyptian Brotherhood. I'm talking the Egyptian priesthood. And I'll give you an example. I'm going to quote this right now, okay? The mystery religions of ancient Egypt, Greece, India, and Babylon helped lay the foundation for occultism, meaning hidden knowledge. One of the earliest writings giving reference to occultism is the Egyptian Book of the Dead, a compilation of rituals explicitly describing methods of torture, intimidation to create human trauma, the use of potions, drugs, and the casting of spells, hypnotism, ultimately resulting in the total enslavement of the initiate. These have been the main ingredients for a part of occultism known as Satanism through the ages. That pretty well says a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And I think we're talking about the roots, the core of all of the problems that permeate the world today and the United States today. I mean, it's really at its most basic level. It's good versus evil. It's God versus Satan, and even to the unbelievers, they've got in at least in my mind, they've got to calculate that in some fashion. They've got to believe in that, whether they describe it as in whatever terms they use. It's got to be that basic and that severe. I don't know. That's just my thinking.
Well, you're correct. And let me give you another quote, Aldous Huxley, okay? And, when you're talking about this world, you're talking primarily about the Huxleys, Julian Aldous Huxley. You're also talking about George Orwell, who I quote quite, what would I say? Many times I quote him. Here's a statement from him on the Committee of 300, and John Coleman, before he passed away, when he was on talk radio, brought that to the attention of most people, the 300 families that rule the world. I'm quoting now, quote, Aldous Huxley, "There will be in the next generation or so a pharmacological method of making people love their servitude and producing dictatorship without tears, so to speak. Producing a kind of painless concentration camp for entire societies so that people will, in fact, have their liberties taken away from them, but will rather enjoy it because they will be distracted from any desire to rebel by propaganda or brainwashing enhanced by pharmacological methods. And this seems to be the final revolution. Hello, the ultimate illuminist is telling you what there is going to do. I'm going to read it one more time, and I'll try and read it slower and with more clarity. There will be in the next generation or so a pharmacological method of making people love their servitude and producing dictatorships without tears, so to speak. Producing a kind of painless concentration camp for entire societies so that people will in fact have their liberties taken away from them, but will rather enjoy it because they will be distracted from any desire to rebel by propaganda or brainwashing through enhanced pharmaceutical and pharmacological methods, and this seems to be the final revolution. Well, that sounds like good night. Prozac Nation? Hello. Birth control in the water? Emasculation? Hello. Xenoestrogenic castration? You know, I don't think people are getting it, the birth rate, and now we've got sex with robots. Here, we'll wake everybody up. Sex with robots is going to be one of the most, how should I say this, alluring bait or traps that's going to be set for humanity, because the reason this is going to be so provocatively evil is the fact that it's going to interfere with birth rates, okay? Human birth rates. And what people don't understand, and this is really critical to understand, is that sex has been the dominating force in the universe since the fallen angels didn't stay in their first estate. Believe me, it wasn't, how should I say this? It wasn't a knitting bee that the fallen angels went after, because they knew one thing. They knew when God created Adam and Eve, Adam first, and made for him a helpmate, Eve, that the procreation, the ability to do something that even the angels couldn't do, was given to humans. In other words, angels can't reproduce themselves, okay? They are, and I'm talking angels now, angels are one-time creations. Does that make sense to you, Doug?
Yep.
Therefore, they came from the realm, okay? They kept not their first estate, came into the human created world, and they wanted what mankind had because they thought they could recreate or continue on. Now, I'm talking about the rebellious angels, and of the one-third of the angels that fell with Lucifer, I say to people, where do you think those entities hang out? You know, it wasn't the original 200 that created, that fell on Mount Hermon and took from earth women wives as they would and produced the giants, and then that thing was repeated both before the flood and after the flood. But now the very, if you will, human seed is under such technological attack that, in essence, if God doesn't intervene, there will be no flesh left alive. At no point in history has a time ever existed when the words of Jesus in that statement, for the elect's sake, those days will be short, unless there be no flesh left alive. And isn't it interesting? The only question Jesus really didn't answer for us is that when the Lord returns, will he find faith in the earth? Well, and unless he does something, my answer to him is, Lord, not only do you know us, but I wouldn't bet on it. Now, someone says, well, you sure are taking that upon yourself. No, here's the thing. The idea is simply that we are at a point now where everything, God's revealing everything. He is the ultimate. Shall not the judge of the whole earth do right? And if the God of heaven is the ultimate judge in justice and mercy and forgiveness, but true justice, then he's going to lay out his case using the evidence. And if Donald Trump is God's prosecuting attorney, I can tell you this, nothing else has flushed these wolves out of their lairs, you know, and if the sheep want to just go quietly into the night and say, here I am, make me mutton sandwich or mutton burgers, then that's for them to do. But there shall be a group of men and women that will rise up, and they who know their God shall be strong and do exploits. This is such an important thing, Doug. When the show's over, I'm going to send you, if you wouldn't mind, I may have sent it to you, but I want to send you this article, Mind Control History and Applications. It is by far the most succinct, the most objective, the most historically accurate presentation of mind control that has ever, and look, I've been at this stuff for a lot of years, but I've never seen this, and I go, wow, this is so well done. So I'll send that to you, Doug, and I think I posted it on my website.
I think,
go ahead.
I just want to say this. I think you did send that to me. If it's the one that it's MK Ultra Mind Control, if it's that one, I think I have it, but feel free to send it again. I'll just compare the two to see if it's the same one, but I'd certainly like to see that. And again, we're you know what, Steve, we're about 3-4 minutes from the top of the hour break where you can get a drink and such, but here in the next few minutes, just leading up to the break, and thank you for that, by the way. I just want to say this. You had talked about many things here over the course of the hour, and we had started out talking about the censorship thing. I just want to go back to that for a moment as we segue toward the top of the hour here. Just to let you know, Stephen, and this could probably be, or should probably be in a private conversation, but the heck with it, I'll just tell you. With respect to censorship, just so you know, in case you haven't heard, I think I might have told you this, but Alex Jones InfoWars censored, banned across all platforms. Now Apple is saying that it's monitoring the InfoWars app, and they threaten to censor it if it becomes, quote, harmful. Okay, whatever that means. So all of these things, like hate speech, is it becoming or would it be harmful? Those are all subjective things. And the reason I brought this up is because I want to make this announcement, in part to give your voice a rest as well. Folks, our app will be rolled out, and it will be folks, just hang on, because we've invested a lot of time, blood, sweat, tears, money, and it's no cheap date into these apps. This app will, in fact, just bookmark HagmannReport.com, and you'll be able to access it. It'll come out probably another week or two, and that's where you can get programs like our archives with Steve Quayle, and our current programs, as well as our archives, plus our website. Because frankly, right now, and we'll also have access there to stevequayle.com in the event that Steve's website goes offline or is prohibited from access, which we saw earlier today. I think you sent me something from someone who couldn't access your website because of some blocking situation.
Yeah, on all the military sites and stuff, and I did send that to you so you could see it. I'm not making it up.
No, Steve, is that the article that you had my dad read, the link, the alert on the...
No.
Because I got an email that they were not, that a listener of ours was unable to share that link on their Facebook page after my dad read it.
Oh, okay, so this is new.
That's another thing, Joe. What I sent to your dad real quick was someone in the military claiming, and he sent me the link, and I sent it to your dad, that everything, no one can access my site. And there were, Doug, I think 9 or 10 different search engines, military search engines, that won't allow anybody to go on my site.
Yeah, and I just want to let people know, again, giving you a little bit of a break here as we approach the top of the hour. Yes, yeah, so... what we are trying to do, and this is a message to our listeners, and especially those tuning in to hear Steve Quayle, what we're trying to do is keep, just like Alex Jones, with his app and with our app. I mean, we're talking tens of thousands of dollars of investment into this in order to circumvent the censorship or the banning. So just to let you know, this is what we're doing, and you'll have all access to that. I
about the app, real quick.
Threw that in there
in the last 40 seconds here before the break. One of the just amazing things, I guess not amazing, but eye-opening things to me. Just when you think that these companies have stooped lower than low, or to their lowest, you see they have lobbied for Alex Jones to be banned off of all these platforms, and there he goes and he gets banned. But what happens? His app shoots up to number 1 on the charts
worldwide
on the Google app, Google Play Store, and the iTunes App Store. And what do? CNN writes 4 articles demanding that they ban his app.
Yep.
They're not satisfied until his presence is removed completely from the internet.
And Steve Quayle talked about this for 25 years, folks. You're listening to the Hagmann Report. Our special guest, Steve Quayle, stevequayle.com. Man, just a machine doing radio all day. Gonna be right back. Stay with us. Give us 3 minutes.
Reporting on what the mainstream media won't, you're listening to the Hagman and Hagman Report on the Global Star Radio Network. Reporting on events as they unfold at the end of the age. You're listening to the Hagman and Hagman Report, streaming live from the Global Star Radio Network. Please stand by. Doug and Joe will be right back. Exposing the New World Order and putting truth into action, you're listening to the Hagman and Hagman Report, streaming live from the Global Star Radio Network. Please stand by.
Welcome back to our third and final hour on this Thursday, August 9th, 2018 edition of the Hagman Report with Steve Quayle hanging with us for this last hour. I wanted to start and open up this hour by saying this. After the last few shows have been over, I've been going home and I'll open my computer, keep the news feed up, but I've been turning on the TV to watch a few episodes of X-Files. I'm a fan of the old X-Files, and I decided to go back and rewatch the season 10 that they did a few years ago, relaunching the show. Well, interestingly enough, episode 1 deals with kind of the same scenario we're seeing today. The Mulder and Scully, the two characters, find themselves back together in this investigation, which involves a character named, I think, Ted O'Malley, something like that. Anyway, he's the Alex Jones of this episode, and they actually built this character around him, where they, tie the conspiratorial claims and on and on and on. Well, interestingly enough, at the end of the broadcast, everything that they said this guy was conspiring about ends up being true, and the plug is pulled on his radio show at the very end there of the episode. And I thought, that's pretty interesting that we see the same thing happening, because it showed at the very end of the episode the computer screen with the error message on it when you attempted to go to this guy's site on the show. And it played out when I was watching it last night. I'm thinking, man, this is pretty similar to how we just saw this played out yesterday. You know, one day he's there and the next day, boom, he's gone.
Yeah, and you know what? Steve Quayle's been talking about this for the last quarter century.
And I brought that up to say this from an emailer we got, an Orwell quote from Kenneth. Every record has been destroyed or falsified, every book rewritten, every picture has been repainted, every statue and street building has been renamed. Every date has been altered, and the process is continuing day by day and minute by minute. History has stopped. Nothing exists except an endless present in which the party is always right. George Orwell's 1984.
Amen. Steve, all right. Welcome back, my friend. Boy, you covered all. I was just going through during the break the notes I took or tried to take during the first hour. Man, you covered a lot of ground.
Well, again, you know, what's interesting, Doug, I put up a hand of help linked to 1984's Dmitry Duduman's vision of the country being attacked with nuclear weapons. And it was fascinating. It's 1984 that he had that, okay? And then Doug sent me, thank you, Doug, sent me another Doug, sent me an email saying, Steve, the link is dead. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you found that link dead for you, go try it now. So while we're on the air, I post a link on America Will Burn, 1984, Dmitry Duduman. He specifically states the 5 states that are going to be totally done, okay, like gone. And you can go and read it. Maybe I'll read a little bit of it. But I want to draw everybody's attention to what we're talking about, the war that's going on right now. And I think it's important. Now, Susan Duclos, on July 13th, 2016, thank you, Susan, for sending this to me. I'm going to repost this article. I think it's one of the best. You know, there are hallmark. There are wonderful articles. And, you know, anytime someone's over the target, they get so much flack. But she did this article on July 13th, 2016. It says, white hate has led to the present race war playing out on the streets of America. And, you know, I want to read a couple of the paragraphs that she wrote because it's really, really important that people understand. This is not some kind of random event. It's very planned out. From his mentor to his weather underground pals, Obama has learned, then used his position to instigate a hatred for whites in America using Saul Alinsky's tactics. And what we are seeing playing out across this nation was a pre-planned and deliberately orchestrated undertaking. Now, listen, this is her first paragraph. Who one chooses as friends, mentors, and spiritual guides often speaks to who we are as a person, what their agenda is in life, and dictates their actions. From Obama's spiritual mentor, Jeremiah Wright, to his weather underground buddy, Bill Ayers, we note the history of a man who has been spoon-fed white hate, hatred for America his entire life, and who has used his position as the President of the United States to instigate a race-class war that is tearing the country apart right now. Now, I'm just going to give a couple quotes from Jeremiah Wright. Jeremiah Wright was a senior pastor at the Trinity United Church of Christ, a church Barack Obama attended and admitted to attending for 2 decades, so 20 years. And he was described as Obama's spiritual mentor and a second father to Obama until some of Reverend Wright's sermons became public knowledge and Barack Obama attempted to disassociate himself from his controversial teachings from the pulpit. As a video interview with Obama shows, he admits to being part of the Wright's congregation 20 years. He admits to donating heavily to the Trinity United Church. He admits he and Michelle were married at the church and Wright presided, and his daughters were baptized there, and Wright presided over the baptism. And basically, Wright basically says that Allah and Yahweh are the same. Wrong. And then he talks about some of his controversial quotes. There's white racist DNA running through the synapses of his or her brain tissue. They will kill their own kind, defend the enemies of their kind, or anyone who is perceived to be an enemy of the milky white way of life. You know? And so then he goes upon, he takes the name of the Lord in vain. When someone said, God bless America, he says, no, 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 not God bless America. And then he took the name of the Lord in vain. And then he goes on to this. Jesus was a poor black man who lived in a country, who lived in a culture that was controlled by rich white people. The Romans were Italian, which means they were European, which means they were white. And the Romans ran everything in Jesus' country. White folks' greed runs the world in need. Well, I would say that's a pretty racist statement. Wouldn't everybody listening to me right now?
Oh, yeah.
And again, the thing is, remember, Doug, one of the critical and principal, I'd say, underpinnings of what I've been trying to warn people for a quarter of a century, boy, does that put it into perspective, is quit dealing with the fruit of evil and go to the root of evil. Now, I know, and here's something that people have got to understand. Whenever anybody, there are people that say, and I get so much, how should I say, flack when I talk about visions and prophecy. The Bible says that prophecy doesn't fail until Jesus comes. But I think it's really important that people understand right now that we are in a time frame like no other, and we're going to see if we see what's going to happen. We're going to see specific areas of the United States destroyed by nuclear fire, okay? And, when Dmitri was brought here in 1984, the angel of the Lord showed him that America is going to burn. And Dmitri asked him, how is it going to burn? And the Russians, and then this is what the angel said, the Russian spies have discovered where the nuclear warehouses are in America. When the Americans will think that it is peace and safety from the middle of the country, some of the people will start fighting against the government, civil war. The government will be busy with internal problems. Then from the ocean, from Cuba, Nicaragua, Mexico, he told me 2 other countries, but I don't remember where they were, they will bomb the nuclear warehouses. When they explode, America will burn. And then the Lord told him specifically which cities in America. He said all of California is going to burn. And what's interesting to me is that, California, it was Florida. And what's interesting, Doug, right now, really interesting, I'm looking for the place it was on this part of what I've got, America Will Burn, and it's been literally sanitized of the 5 states that are going to be toasted, okay? So I think it's really interesting that this is happening right now while we're on the air. So, ladies and gentlemen, find Dmitri Duduman's vision, this is also in his book, Through the Fire Without Burning. But again, what's astonishing to me, from what I posted first that was taken down, now what I'm posting, and there is no mention of it that I can see. I'm speed reading while I'm talking, that,
I only see New York and Florida. I see New York, Florida, and Las Vegas.
Florida. Thank you. Yep.
And yeah.
Thank you.
But that's it.
So, yep, 1984, George Orwell's 1984, the angel of the Lord comes and shows Dmitri. People can argue with it. I don't believe God still speaks prophetically. Of course you don't. You don't believe in God. Or they believe in the God of their making, not of the Bible's revelation. So what am I saying tonight here? We are in a war. The First Amendment goes, so do you. Think about this. They kill free speech. That's the next step to killing you. And it's now very important that people recognize that we're in a whole different time frame. It's so late, and again, I'm gonna post this that Susan wrote. And Doug, why is this important? Because there was no racial problems until Obama started making them the racial problems. When I saw the picture, do you guys see the picture of where he's dressed up as the Baphomet in a shining sequined outfit?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Did you guys see that?
Yep.
Okay, what was your first thought when you saw that?
Well, it's the same. We see it. It's the.
I threw up my mouth a little bit, but
it's the worshiping of Satan. It's the worshiping
satanic.
of evil, and we see it all over. I see it all over, movies and TV shows and all kinds of.
Think about beyond that. Okay, when you think of the word Obama and nation together, I think I was one of the first guys to put that together. Okay, that makes desolate. Our country is divided. Our country is falling apart at the seams. Okay, but here's the thing: the Democrats, the communists, the Marxists, they're throwing the first punches. And one of my concerns is that at some point, somebody, an extraneous shooter is going to be introduced, when I say this, somebody's intelligence agent, and they're going to start the shooting war. Now, I don't know where the middle of the country is, but that still really bothers me, and I don't have an answer to that yet. But again, when you've got Weather Underground, the thing that people have got to understand, when that was founded in the late 60s, they were talking about 30 million people need to be killed. Well, those were primarily gun owners and white people. So now you basically have Bill Ayers and Obama downplaying their past connections. But listen, the fruit doesn't fall very far from the tree. So now we've got open rebellion. We have treason at the highest ranks. You've got Brennan, okay, and you've got, good night. You've got the other people in the former Obama staff still there. You've got most of the State Department staff under Obama still there. And you've got the Republicans that are as treacherous, if not more so. I would just wish guys like Paul Ryan would step out of their rhino suit and, declare who they really are, because they are trying to overthrow the president. They are trying to frustrate him. According to sources, maybe you guys have heard this too, there have been 12 attempts to assassinate the president.
Yeah, you know what? I've heard that, Steve. I've not been able to confirm or verify the circumstances under which those were made.
One for sure in the campaign where a guy was stopped with a gun trying to approach the stage.
Right. No, these are beyond that, and these are the ones that aren't reported, you know? So I don't know that to be true, Doug. I'm just saying this, that there's never been a president who's been more hated, more mocked, more ridiculed, more scorned, and he keeps, look, I don't like everything he's doing. I don't like some of the appointments, but I know this. If God put him in there for no other reason to be the prosecuting attorney against America's leader sins, and, I get flack for that statement. Ladies and gentlemen, I said it before any of the Cold War got hot, when I said before America allows Russia and China to nuke the United States, he's going to reveal the sins of the leaders to the people, the American people, and the American people's sins before a holy God. And you understand, Doug, that when the rogue nations, and go ahead and read, will you go back to that alert and read the part about the military, that there are factions of the military that may be in possession of nuclear weapons that could go rogue, and that would bring the wrath of the entire other world down on us? It's in the alert.
Yeah,
I think
sure.
It's right after.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, the way at the end of the last the part where I left off, do you really think these people are going to allow themselves to be taken alive? I don't think so. I think they'll pull out all the stops in order to save their hide. And then he writes, we considered a few things. How would it start and how could it end if you were the main political power of a country and the people rose up against you and there was no escaping this judgment? What stops would you pull out in order to flee? Would you take down the national power grid by either a high-altitude nuke causing an EMP? Or how about using cyber terrorism to take down the national power grid of the East Coast, knowing that within a matter of maybe hours, the West Coast will also go down, given the cascading effect? How about this? And I'm paraphrasing here. How about this? Let's say you're an acting U.S. general and you secretly aligned with the left and the deep state, and you had a certain amount of troops that you could trust and that you could pay off to help commit a heinous act of either act by either assassinating political and religious figures or by trying to help a deep state member flee to safety. So he says what could very easily happen during that kind of a situation is that you could even have a U.S. general under his jurisdiction who has a nuclear warhead silo captured and threatens to use it against the U.S. government, or you could even have multiple of these scenarios. Even if it was just a bluff to try to get the sitting U.S. president to step down, you would be giving the United Nations and the NATO allies an excuse to invade the perfect excuse would be that the Americans, that America, the world's strongest nation, has finally gone rogue, and there were rogue factions, terror cells within the government's military. And he continues. You would force the hands of the rest of the world and the military to converge down on top of the U.S. That's good. That's just one scenario.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. And again, ladies and gentlemen, you can go read the whole thing, and we're just giving you bits and pieces because we got a time issue. But it's on my alerts, stevequayle.com, my alerts. And I know this brother individually. I know him very, very well, okay? So this isn't just some nameless guy that just sends Steve, and he loves God, he loves his country, and he's not the kind of guy that drinks milk out of the bowl, I tease him. I said, what do you do? What do you eat for breakfast? Nuts and bolts with WD-40? You would not want to mess with him. But in his love for Jesus, in his world, you stand up for Jesus, trust me, promotions are far and few between. And again, I just posted that mind control history and applications on my website, as one of your listeners just asked me to, or one of our listeners. So it's up there, Doug.
Yeah, it's okay. Just to go back a little bit, just to be clear, both the Dmitry Duduman link is active, and I just checked it on your website, as well as the alert just referenced. So everything appears to be running normally, except the morphing of the Duduman prophetic.
Yeah,
utterance.
I'm going to replace that link too. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. I can do two things at once. I can't do three.
Right.
And while I'm talking to you, Doug, right now I'm posting the Susan Duclos repost. It's that important. It really is. You see, here's the thing. People say, well, why would you repost something from July? I mean, isn't there more pertinent stuff? Well, obviously, people don't get it, so you redo it, and you redo it, and they redo it. But I need to get people to read this article because it's that important, okay? You see, when you understand the root of evil, all of the branches of evil stand out so clearly. If you don't understand the root, then you just get hung up on the fruit, one area that people focus on. And usually it's the Bilderbergers, the Trilateralists, the Committee of 300. That's true. That's all real. But you've got to get to the root of evil. And at the bottom line, you come right back to the Luciferians and the rampant Satanism. And Hollywood is totally given over. And I know this. I know that God is no respecter of persons, but he does, as to their sins, so shall their judgment be. I don't know what it will be, but I know this, that when God judges Hollywood, the whole world will know that it's he who judged Hollywood. Amen. They may not believe in him, they may not like him, they may serve the powers of darkness, they may do this, but when God judges Hollywood, the world will know that it was God. The very God they mock, scorn, ridicule, and the very pedophiles that basically change the innocence of childhood into human sacrifice for their own sick and perverted appetites.
And Steve, when we talked about, I'm amazed. You go back right after the election of Donald Trump, when these bits and pieces of information began coming out about Hollywood, and then of course the now infamous Executive Order 1221 by Donald Trump to the asset forfeiture executive order or command, how all of this is tying together, and I think that Donald Trump is and has done some amazing things in his 550 days or however many days he's been in office to expose the deeds of those in Hollywood, which overlap into the deeds of those in D.C. And very well stated, though. You've done a great job in kind of connecting the dots. And this is, man, are we not seeing today the things that would make Harvey Weinstein look like a choir boy? I mean, it's just getting worse and worse, So.
Well, as far as I know, he preferred his women live.
Yeah.
Good point. There are no accusations of, necrophilia yet that I've seen. But the point is that even somebody sent me, Elaine, thank you. She sent me something too. She said, the DSM-5 is changing the development course of pedophilia. They used to call it, that's a psychiatric, if you will, book on guidelines. I forget what the official name of it is, but they're going to make it. I'm sorry, what?
The DSM, yes. Yeah, the DSM-5. 5. I think the different versions, but yeah, up until DSM-5, I think it was a perversion as opposed to a something to celebrate.
Yeah, and so in essence, everything that was taboo, I'm sorry, but Sade's song, "The Sweetest Taboo," doesn't fit here, okay? And let me explain something about taboo. Taboos are going to become more and more prominent. And can I share something? I want everybody to think about this. When it was openly announced that the Temple of Baal, or Baal, like I can pronounce it Baal, B-A-A-L, was coming to the United States and that they were literally rejoicing in it, you could have known that that was the official announcement that it's okay to now, start sacrificing children en masse, okay? And when I read these, quote, to even claim to be ministers saying that doing an abortion is serving God with all my heart. No, you're being served up by the devil with all his heart to destroy you for eternity. And now there are people claiming that there is no hell and that ultimate reconciliation. It's kind of like the song Sympathy for the Devil is coming into the mainstream, and Lucifer's just really a misunderstood guy. Well, if you can't judge a tree by its fruit, I would say this, and you're blind and you don't know what a tree or fruit looks like. So every form of evil, I believe it's in Nahum, the prophet, minor prophet Nahum, and not a minor in relevance, only by the amount of words that are attributed to him. But God says, you want filth? I'm going to pour you out abominable filth. And you're gonna basically drown in it. And is not America drowning in its own filth? And isn't it interesting that California is now burning? It's like to the degree, look, I'm sorry and I'm sad. And one time I mentioned California, and I got a bunch of California Christians saying, we love Jesus just as much as you do. And I said, well, good. I'm not calling into your question your love for Jesus. All I'm telling you is that there's something going on in your state, and you can say that you have prayer meetings and everything, but you better be aware that you can take, what I can say, you can also resist moving in the Holy Ghost. And so I'm not down on Californians. I just refuse to go there. I can tell you this. I was supposed to go there on some kind of a movie deal, and I said, I won't go there. You meet me in Salt Lake. So I'm trying to be consistent with what I believe. But look at the fires, ladies and gentlemen. Look at the fires. Now it is the largest fire in California history. Well, I know this when the Lord gave me that word. I'm not a prophet, but he gave me a word, the testimony of Jesus, the spirit of prophecy, that because of the West Coast burning consumption for lust, and they're burning fire for lust, that he's going to deal with them and fire. And then you look at the East Coast, and I think it's the cold and indifferent hearts. He's going to blast them with cold and with freezing temperatures and cold. Boy, I can tell you what, it sounds like that 18 years ago hit the head. And again, what I'm saying is this. I found this, Doug. The first response to truth that is uncomfortable is simply denial. Then it's the attacking of the messenger. I know there's a 4-step process, but the point is that you ought to put it into perspective. Everything has changed. There is no such thing as normal. I'll say that 2 more times. Everything has changed. There is no such thing as normal. Everything has changed. There is no such thing as normal. Normal weather? I don't think so. One of Pam sent me from up Kalispell, which is north of me by a couple hundred miles. That's supposed to get to be 104 in, I think, Columbia Falls or Thompson Falls. 104 in Montana? Good night. We just had our last snow leave about less than a month ago. So everything is being engineered. And by the way, I want to go on record. I believe in global warming. I absolutely do. But I believe in it based on the 2025 report by the U.S. Air Force. We own the weather. Of course it's man-made. And it's geoengineering and it's execution. Dane Wigington is doing a great job. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, pray for him. And he's in the middle of the firestorm area. I don't know how close it is to him, but he's been a one-man clarion call for the reality of geoengineering. When I wrote my book, Weather Wars and Unnatural Disasters, I don't know, 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, whenever it was, the thing is that nobody could understand. I quoted defense attorneys. I quoted the We Own the Weather 2025. I put it as an addendum in my book, and I put in the history of weather control modifications, and even the guys that can't stand me say, yeah, Quayle was the first one to talk about chemtrailing. Well, the point is that we're now, I would say this, here's a great statement, we're beyond the point of denial.
I don't think anyone can argue that point, although some will still deny. But we're beyond that point. We're beyond the point of denial. But it's amazing how the non-believers, especially, and how faith factors into all of this. They'll still deny, and it's even worse than that. If I can add, they'll mock, they'll ridicule. I mean, I've seen some of these right-wing sites, watch sites like Right Wing Watch. Their hatred for anything Christian is just.
And Steve pointed it out, with the opening of that, citing the Army's 2025 weather manipulation manual, and we see this, they call it, cloud seeding or rain modification now, what they used to call crazy people who pointed out chemtrails. And that goes back to what we opened with, Steve. YouTube now going to put under the videos of anybody denying man-made global warming with fact-checking articles, as my dad said, kind of end around the fairness doctrine. So YouTube, and this is from Media Matters earlier this week, that the next step in this censorship evolution should be the banning of climate change deniers.
So that means your book, Weather Warfare, your book about weather warfare is going to have to be banned. I call for it. I demand it.
I'll challenge them on it. I'm going to, and if they do, that will happen, but I'll challenge them on it and say, listen, I've been believing in man-made climate change longer than it became politically correct.
That's right. You were the first. I'll tell you what, you were the first one I read. Your book was the first I read about that. And if that doesn't make believers out of people, I don't know what will, given the amount of footnotes, evidence, endnotes, and references. So.
For sure. Let me quote one of the statements by William Cohen, okay? He was the Department of Defense. He was the Secretary of Defense. He said this: others are engaging even in an eco-type of terrorism whereby they can alter the climate, set off earthquakes and volcanoes remotely through the use of electromagnetic waves. Hello? Tesla made those statements. So when I quote this, okay, and I quote all this stuff and I source it, then it's just tragic. Let me read you this quote, because this is important that people understand this. We're not sitting around, basically on some drug, hallucinogen, microdosing on LSD on our post-toasties, but weather is a force multiplier. Owning the weather in 2025. It says, weather modifications offers a warfighter a wide range of possible options to defeat or coerce an adversary. Weather modification will be a part of domestic and international security that could be done unilaterally. It could have offensive and defensive applications and even be used for deterrence purposes. The ability to generate precipitation, fog, and storms on Earth or modify space weather, now notice that, space weather, and the production of artificial weather will all be a part of an integrated set of military technologies. I think, too, I'm looking for it. I remember, what's his name? Zygmunt Brzezinski said, weather warfare will enable, and I'm posting, I'm just quoting this right now. Here it is. No matter how deeply disturbing the thought of using the environment in manipulative behavior for national advantage is the same. The technology permitting such use will probably be developed within the next few decades. But he said, one nation can make war on another nation and blame God. Well, I got news for you. These people believe they are God. So therefore, the God, the real God, is going to say, okay, guys, you've taken your best shot. Now watch what I do. Because the scripture says he taketh the weather in their own devices. There are people that argue with me from a religious standpoint that say God is the ultimate controller of the weather. Amen. But God also says he's going to destroy those who destroy the earth. So can I ask you something, Mr. Skeptic, Mr. Scorn? How do you reconcile those scriptures? Usually they shut up. So the point being is, and not all the time, the point being is that we're now seeing the implementation of this that is so important. And it was Lyndon Baines Johnson, I hope it wasn't in the back of the limousine with his lady consort, who said, "He who controls the weather controls the world." Hello? Remember the date of Lyndon Baines Johnson's reign of strangeness? You know? Mm-hmm. Doug, did you know that he's the one that made that statement? He who controls the weather controls the world?
No, I did not realize that was attributed to LBJ. Interesting fact, though. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, interesting. So what is this? It isn't minutia. It's important to be armed with the truth. And the truth of the matter is, right now, everything we're saying, whether it's a directed energy weapon that's setting off the California fires, you know, whether it's the jihadis, you know, with a blowtorch, whether it's some crazed out arsonist, the point is that the end result is the same. Of course, God controls everything, but he also allows the exercise of free will within defined parameters. And when his people cry out, he is the one that redefines the parameters. God can be merciful. And even King David said, Lord, you know, be merciful in your judgment, you know. And King David knew what mercy and judgment meant. I don't believe that people yet, and Doug, my prayer is, Lord, will you for 1 week, maybe I should even plead it down to 3 days, Lord. Will you stop all the electromagnetic manipulation? Will you allow a 7-day period of taking away all external stimulus and blinding and mind control and chemicals and give the people a week to wake up? Will you give them a week, Lord, to wake up? So, Doug, I don't know that they will wake up, or else Jesus wouldn't answer or ask a question, you know, when the Lord returns, will he find faith in the earth? I just don't know.
What
do we do? We band together, okay? Those of you who are on Twitter, tweeter, twatter, platter, spitter, spatter, you know, you're going to be served up on the platter. If you don't stand up, I want you to flood Twitter and saying, you guys should, of all people, be standing for free speech. I want you to flood Faces of Death book with the same thing. I want you to start saying that, look, not everybody can be as active or has a podium or the microphone that we have, Doug, but they can do something. They can start writing. They can start going on forums. They can start doing the same thing that they've got to take, how do I say this? We have to take back the control of the narrative. Because, again, ladies and gentlemen, all those social platforms, consider them aircraft carriers launching nuclear-laden missiles and fighter jets coming at you in all dimensions. The only way you can deal with that is to basically shut their power down. And the shutting of their power down is a metaphor for you need to take back the narrative. That's why I respect Alex Jones. He's not allowing, with that and every other reason, like I said, Texas has titanium testicles, and I thank God that there are men from Texas who do. I'm not saying that's the only state, but when you've got people that are wearing female reproductive organs on their heads as male in Sweden, man, you can understand Sweden is lost. And I think the scripture, and I forget where it's at, but it says all the men in the midst of thee are women. You know? And unfortunately, men's health issues shouldn't be relegated and delegated to an OBGYN clinic.
Good point. Yeah. I did. I don't know how many others got that, but you're right. And Steve, in advance of today, I just as you were on with David Knight, I hosted the 4th hour of InfoWars, and I closed my appearance out with a question or with a statement in the form of a question, and that's what this show is titled as well. What could be worse than a civil war? And I extend that by saying perhaps not having one at all. And I pose that as a question. I put a question mark after that. Now, I certainly don't want to see a civil war in this country, but I do believe we're already engaged in a war, in a civil war. It's just not a typical conventional civil war like we've seen. But the reason I pose it like that, not urging a civil war, but I think we as Christians, as conservative Christians especially, we need to take a stand. Because if we don't fight, what could be worse than a civil war where no one is fighting, or where everyone's fighting? It's one where one side is not fighting. And when I say
what could be worse than a civil war? The total annihilation of 50% of the population of every man, woman, and child, because that's what they're already in the 60s. And that, by the way, I did repost Susan Duclos' article. Please go and read it, everyone, because if they were talking about whacking 30 million white people, primarily gun owners, Christians, then what's the numbers now? We'll take the difference in the population. I did this once, but I forget the number. The population of the United States in 1964 through 68, and then take the population, take the percentage and see. And I think we came up with, it pretty much was, something like 25 to 30% of the population. Well, that links and syncs up with the red list, the blue list, and the green list, you know? And I've seen red, blue, and yellow. It was never yellow. It was red list, blue list, and green list. Basically, the red lists are people to be terminated in the first 30 to 60 days, people that were gun owners, Christians. Blue lists were the cops and law enforcement and military that would be allowed to live to take care of the red list, and when they're done, they get whacked. And they get whacked, by the way, by the foreign militaries they're training with that are already positioned in this country. And then the green list get to be the drones. They get to be the serfs. They get to serve their masters because they never stood for anything and will take orders against everything that everybody else ever believed. In essence, they would be the traitors.
And there it is. And you've been saying that for a long time. I mean, it's pretty clear. Now I think more people, thankfully, I think more people are awake now. Not enough by any stretch of the imagination, but what you've done, what InfoWars has done, and I'd like to think what we've done in some small part is to wake a segment of the population up to what we're going through right now.
Absolutely, Doug. One man plants, another waters, and another fertilizes. And the thing is that it's like a garden. God likens ancient Israel to a vineyard. And He said, "What more could I've done for you?" And so the point being is that here's the thing: we need to basically recognize this is total information war. Words are containers. They are redefining our words. They are changing our speech. That's exactly what Orwell said they would do. That's exactly what in Atlas Shrugged was being done. I got to tell you something. Atlas is shrugging, but maybe it ought to be, Atlas needs to be vomiting or something to get people's attention, because nothing gets people's attention. You know this. I'm sorry to be gross, but when someone starts to hurl, everybody has an immediate response, don't they?
Believe me, I've seen that happen.
And Steve,
sympathetic. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to bring this to everyone's attention because this was brought up on our show by a caller earlier this week, and I don't want to get into the censorship issue too far without getting into the Christian aspect of it. Everybody's focused on the political aspect and the alternative media aspect of it, but recently in California there was a billboard that was purchased by a pastor who holds these events at Anaheim Stadium. And all the billboard showed was him holding a Bible, which did not say Bible. And the rest of the logo said Social Harvest, Greg Laurie, and it gave the dates. Anyways, after numerous complaints, they removed the billboard because they said that it was offensive to some people. But this article from from CBN News, the growing intolerance towards God and Christianity, why Bible billboards were blocked. But this goes to a further story in California where under this law that bans any type of gender therapy to try to tell, a boy who is a boy that he's not a girl is banned. And any literature promoting that is also banned, which would include the Bible. How much of the censorship do you believe is for the purpose of suppressing Christian and in biblical texts versus what we see right now, the alternative media and this debate political that we have now? Yeah.
Well, you can sum it up this way too. Free speech is what we say, not what you say.
Good point. Yeah, and yeah, that's and there it is.
We're free to say what we want to say. You are not free to say what you want to say. And if you continue saying what you want to say, we're going to kill you. Again, ladies and gentlemen, why is it that the people hide themselves behind their masks, the Antifa people? Well, it's simple, because they don't want to be known who they are, because they don't want to pay the price. And the deal that is I think it was, I forget which police force, was it in maybe Oregon, Portland, that they named all of the protesters and posted their names, and that made the crybabies wet out of both ends.
Oh yeah, that was. Well, when was that?
That was brilliant. If anybody is in the law enforcement field that was involved in that, I take my hat off to you, because if they want to own their I got to say it right. I'm sorry. If they want to own their stuff, then they got to basically be expectant of them being known too. Because again, when I hear they're going to bring a gun to a knife fight or whatever, I'll tell you what, the last guys you want to mess with are people that can really respond immediately. And I asked my friend, the LEO guy, who is boots on the ground, giving us that alert. Look, prayers of God's people change everything. But you better recognize this, that we are in the time period that Jesus spoke of. I know there are people arguing, well, the rapture hasn't come, so we're not there yet. Well, will you be saying that when they come you have to take the mark? And remember, ladies and gentlemen, the mark, the reason why the people who take the mark of the beast are going to be damned is not just because they deny Jesus to do so. That in itself is worth that. But it's going to change your DNA. When your DNA is changed on the level that these people are provoking and promoting and also engineering, you will cease to be human. If you cease to be human, you will, and I'm not talking morally or ethically, I'm talking biologically, you will no longer be what's the word? You'll no longer can avail yourself of the salvation where Jesus died for the human race. He didn't die for the angels that sinned. He didn't die for anything else. He died for those that were created in God's image and likeness, who fell into the power of sin. It's a power. It's not an act. The power provokes and promotes the act, and who only through his precious blood can we be redeemed. These people want to suck the life blood out of our youth, literally. They want to rape our children, literally. They want to sacrifice them on the altar. And so can I say something? And I won't use a word, but all the other arguments pale in comparison to that horror being promulgated on the heritage of the Lord. Children are the heritage of the Lord. They're attacking God's image and likeness. They're eating it up. They're devouring it. They're drinking the blood. They're raping the innocents. They're stealing the innocents. And all that stuff. And it's not who isn't. Forgive me. It is who is in Hollywood. And God bless everybody who works in the film business that's a Christian, that's a believer, that stands against this stuff. And may God literally, unto their sin, let their judgment be.
Amen. Well, Steve, you know what? We've only got about 10 minutes left, and I think
I'll let you guys take it. I want to say God bless you to everyone, and not that you were so kind to let me come on and rant and rave. But the deal is, ladies and gentlemen, my rantings and ravings will cease. My ability to post on the internet will cease. My ability to be any more light in a very dark world will cease. My critics and my mockers and the scorners and the character assassinations and the liars, your ability to even be heard will cease, because they won't allow any mention of us. So I would encourage all of you, and especially those of you, and I'm speaking to a specific individual that has a ministry on talk radio and on television, stop attacking Alex Jones. Suck it up. Quit attacking Alex Jones. Quit attacking everybody other than you. And you better turn from your wicked ways, because slander is not acceptable in the kingdom of God. Well, Doug, God bless you. Good night. Hey, Joe, blessings to you, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to me. I'm sorry that I'm kind of fizzling out, but again, 4 hours straight today.
Yeah.
It was not straight, but I mean, start to finish. God bless you, Doug.
All right, brother. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
All right, folks, that was Steve Quayle from stevequayle.com. And yeah, I know, man, I'm on hour number 5, but I'll tell you what, I don't know how, it gives me new respect for people like Keith Hansen who can just go all day. But very interesting conversation with Steve Quayle about where we're at. And I think, when I think back, and Joe, you were with me numerous times when you were a young man, and we used to listen to Steve on audio cassette from the Art Bell days, and and a lot of the information that he had back then, it was like, nah, and then look at where we're at today. So there we are.
Look at where we're at today. It's absolutely unbelievable. And I didn't mention this coming back from the break, which I was supposed to. Don't forget the True Legends Conference coming up in Branson, Missouri. Go to truelegends.com, register there, register for the live streaming if you cannot attend. And it's going to be a great event. I was not there last year, but I do have the privilege of going this year with my father, and I'm really looking forward to seeing everybody who makes it out there. It's going to be a great experience.
It's interesting because the first week we're going to be in Washington, D.C. at the FAIR event, FAIR, the Federation on the legal immigration. And then the following week we're going to be in Missouri. So it's going to be a busy 2 weeks. We're going to have to have a team meeting here, and we're going to have to figure out,
how in our absence, we should have some guest hosts come on, and there's a few things we can do.
Yeah, but in the meantime, understand, folks, that please, I beg of you, we beg of you to really realize where we're at. And this is a good time, I think, for us to say, thank you for those who support us, because without your support, although we do take minimal advertisers, we have a very, very short list, but without your support, we would not be able to do what we do, and we would not be able to survive. And it takes, it's in order. And I said this many times this week. When you back up your intellectual property, you take hard drive space, multiple hard drives, storage, the equivalent of servers. And then you've got, of course, the redundancy that you build into a platform in order to continue to broadcast. I'll tell you something, it's costly. And we've done that. We've accomplished that. So if they pull the plug on us, all I want to, if you remember nothing else, if we disappear from YouTube or social networking sites, just simply go to HagmannReport.com.
Yep, there's a watch page,
and that's right. And we have our own system that will be able to still broadcast.
And another alternative that I want to mention that I just learned yesterday or the day before, BitChute. Our content has been for some time now, I don't know how long, has been uploaded to BitChute. I want to thank, I don't know if it was the founder or the CEO or whoever is at the helm there for working that in there. Because interestingly enough, when Jones got wiped out of all these channels, I watched some guys rant Wednesday morning where he talked about how BitChute had become 20, 30, 100 times more popular than it was hours before in that morning, just because the content of Jones hosting a lot of the content there. And when I got into the studio, I was mentioning it to Eric, and he said, "Oh yeah, we have a BitChute." So I want to thank the folks over there at BitChute. And if you're unfamiliar of this outlet like I was, do a quick search. Check it out. Our show is there also. And that is outside the ability of these companies to shut down.
In the blockchain aspect of things, that's right. So we thank everyone again from the bottom of our hearts. We thank you for your support. Without it, we would not exist. And you know what? The way I look at it too is this: we were not. I never expected to be here. This is certainly the last place I thought I'd ever be 15 years ago. Really, I just. It was never even on my radar, but sometimes, well, you make plans, God laughs, and he sets you straight. So I suppose we have a mission, and we need to be obedient, and we will always be that. And in tandem with that, we will always do our level best to be upfront, honest, and supportive of our audience, of our listeners, of our viewers, and never attempt to lead you astray. Just tell you the facts, and that's what we try to do. And sometimes, sometimes we're wrong. Sometimes we're not 100% correct, but all the time we try to be upright, forthright, honest, and give you the information as we believe it. So
I've never once came on and had a piece of information that I said, you know what, this is not true. I'm going to talk about it.
So let's do it.
Never once, and I never would. And that's just that's just the way we are here. We're not, and it's not. It's what should be normal. It should not be the exception.
You mentioned that though, and when I look at what they've done, and I mean this, what they've done to Alex Jones. And I use him because he's in the news across the globe, across the planet. He's in the news. So, when you understand what they've done, when I say they, I'm talking about some in the media, some people who are just engaged in Schadenfreude, the mockery and what they've done to him is just, it's unforgivable, or it's unforgettable, I should say, and it can happen to you. And I think
you saw the Gab AI today.
Oh yeah. Okay,
so there's an interesting story about this.
Very interesting. In fact, I've got a presence on Gab AI. We're going to have a presence on we, meaning the Hagmann Report, will have a presence on Gab AI. But that's such an interesting story, where Gab AI was threatened with expulsion from the servers
over
at
Microsoft. Microsoft threatened to drop hosting for Gab over hate speech posts. It goes on to say Microsoft threatened to cease hosting the service for the alt-right social network Gab over 2 anti-Semitic posts, according to an email published by Gab founder Andrew Torba.
But they're not alt-right, okay?
Right.
Gab AI is not alt-right by the definition that people expect alt-right to be, okay? So,
but anyways, it just shows this increasing and disturbing trend that we see these people are being attacked because of now third-party posts on their platforms. And this is just adding more. I mean, if they can do this, that means our comment section. That means, somebody could say, hey,
that's
we're
right,
going to host your website because of what other people said on your comments.
And get ready for this, because, again, this week, I'm trying to think, it was this week, I got served with a copyright, not a copyright infringement notice, I don't recall what it was called, but it's a legal notice that actually being sued for something that happened in 2016. All right, so now, okay, which is fine. These days, to have a platform, you've got to have a legal team on retainer. Otherwise, and they charge basically by the minute. But the only reason I brought that up is because look at that, and look at the ever-changing. Well, the attempts to change the definition of the platforms from content, the hosting, the places that host content versus content. I want to say providers, but that's not the content providers versus content creators, I suppose. Yeah, now it's a little bit. Now the definitions are being blurred deliberately, and that's another facet that's being opened and exacerbated.
Oh yeah, the language here, and one of the things with Jones and many others is they state that the terms of service were violated, whether it's hate speech or making disparaging remarks towards immigration and transgendered people. And I got some clarification on that. I found out what it was that they were upset about on the social media platform about Jones disparaging transgenders. Apparently there was a drag queen show in his hometown that had children dressing up in drag and doing, sexually provocative dances on poles, and he called this out, and that was what constituted his banning on one of these platforms because of his hatred towards transgenders.
So and that I'm glad you brought that up.
I mean,
exactly. Thank you. Yeah, if those people who know what Joe's talking about, to see that would sicken the average person, because they've got children, twerping.
Right.
Okay,
Did you see the
know
TED
what?
Talks too? The video where the lady said pedophilia is a sexual orientation, just like being straight or homosexual or transgendered. It's something that you're born with and you can't change. So we have to learn how to accept pedophiles because, and she goes on to make this just crazy argument that not all pedophiles are child abusers and not all child abusers are pedophiles. And going on to try to make it sound like pedophiles love the children that they hurt, whereas child abusers just exploit the children. So there's a difference there, and we have to be socially conscious. And you can see it now. Just wait till the day where your YouTube video or your Facebook post gets pulled off for being hateful towards pedophiles.
It's coming, and as I said, and I've been saying this now pretty much all year for the past years. It's not about us. It's not even about Alex Jones. It's about you, and it's going to happen to you, because if they can do that and have done this to InfoWars, and I look at some of the Twitter feeds dedicated to taking him down, and other platforms dedicated, in the celebratory postings. My goodness. Is this what you really want?
Well, it shows
it's going to be you.
Which side you're on, obviously, and every person who cheers for. I mean, how many times have we covered just the lies, the vitriol, the hatred, even the violence from the left, and especially the mainstream news media on the left? How many times have you heard us say, "Let's ban CNN"? I mean, maybe we said, it'd be nice to see them get cut off the air every once in a while, but we've never advocated for the banning of any media outlets or personalities, no matter how terrible they may be.
I might have talked about bringing back the blue dots, the William Kennedy Smith trial blue dots on the screen. Remember those? Yeah. But I'm kidding. But you're right. And now, we'll go back to the Supreme Court decision that supposedly legalized homosexual marriage. And of course, everyone on the proper right said this is going to open the doors for something much. Give them an inch, they're going to take a mile. And look at what's happening. It's going to normalize pedophilia, polygamy, and it's doing just that. So this is why the morality, the social norms, and by the way, that's the attacks on our social norms or our culture and our religious beliefs is so violent and violently aggressive, because they've got to quickly change and tear us down through those measures. So, folks, I thought this was a great show tonight. I hope you enjoyed it as well. Tomorrow we've got Paul McGuire on, and if you have a chance to listen to some of his recent postings on his own show, my goodness.
He's got some new stuff coming out.
Yeah.
And he's going to be on. It's been a while since we've had him on. Always a fan favorite and one of our favorites. He will be joining us tomorrow from 8 to 10 for a special 2-hour. We're going to wall-to-wall coverage of the censorship stuff, the Civil War stuff, the 2018 midterm elections, President Trump's agenda, the future of America, and the spiritual implications of everything that we're seeing taking place. You're not going to want to miss that show. In the first hour, we're going to cover news in the first segment, and the second segment, we're going to take listener calls, and then we're going to go to Paul McGuire. So it'll be a interesting show.
And the three people that didn't.
I got your names.
Yep. Okay. You guys call if you're listening tonight. We'll take you first.
Yes, we will. So until then, stay safe. Have a great evening. Tomorrow, the Doug Hagman Radio Show, the Hagman Daily Show. Then don't miss the Hagman.